The limestone walls of Mons Michelle wept with centuries of accumulated moisture as archaeologist Dr. Elise Verdun carefully descended the newly discovered staircase. Carbon dating of the mortar suggested the chamber had been sealed in the early 14th century, precisely when the Knights Templar were being systematically erased from history. "Down here," she called to her team, her voice echoing against ancient stone. The ground-penetrating radar was correct. What they found defied explanation. A small octagonal chamber, untouched for 700 years. At its center lay a lead-lined box containing a parchment written in a cipher so complex it would take modern cryptographers 3 years to decode. When they finally broke the code, the document's opening lines sent tremors through the academic world. "I, Brother Arnaud de la Tour, last keeper of the sacred knowledge, write this testament, knowing my death approaches. What we discovered beneath the Temple of Solomon must never be lost, though the Church will burn us all to bury this truth." The discovery at Mons Michelle would reopen history's most mysterious cold case. Why were the Knights Templar, once the most powerful military and financial organization in medieval Europe, so suddenly and brutally destroyed? What secret did they possess that frightened the Church enough to orchestrate their complete annihilation? The dawn of Friday, October 13th, 1307, broke cold and gray over France. As the kingdom stirred to life, royal guards moved with deadly precision, executing sealed orders that had been distributed weeks earlier, with strict instructions not to open them until this morning. Simultaneously, across France, thousands of Knights Templar were arrested in their beds, caught completely unaware by the synchronized attack. The charges against them were shocking. Heresy, blasphemy, idolatry, homosexual practices, and worship of a mysterious idol called Baphomet. Under torture, confessions flowed. By month's end, even their revered Grand Master Jacques de Molay had admitted to spitting on the cross and denying Christ. 7 years later, on March 18th, 1314, an elderly de Molay stood on a platform erected on an island in the Seine River, flames licking at his feet. As the fire consumed him, witnesses reported his final words as a terrible curse upon both King Philip IV of France and Pope Clement V, summoning them to meet him at God's judgment throne within the year. Whether by coincidence or something more mysterious, both men would indeed be dead within 12 months. But what truly lay behind this swift and merciless destruction of an order that had served as Christendom's elite fighting force for nearly 2 centuries? The official explanation, heresy and moral corruption, has never satisfied historians. Something deeper, something more threatening to the very foundations of medieval power, must have motivated such extreme measures. The story began in 1118, when 9 French knights led by Hugues de Payens swore to protect Christian pilgrims traveling to the recently conquered Jerusalem. Taking vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, they established headquarters on the Temple Mount, the very site where Solomon's temple once stood. For their first 9 years, the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon remained small and obscure. Then, in 1129, everything changed. The Council of Troyes granted them official recognition, transforming them from a band of 9 knights into an arm of the Church itself. Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, the most influential religious figure of the age, wrote their rule and became their passionate advocate. What explained this sudden elevation? Records suggest their early years weren't spent merely escorting pilgrims, but excavating beneath the Temple Mount. Jerusalem had fallen to Muslim forces in 587 BCE, and again to the Romans in 70 CE, with the temple destroyed both times. What treasures or documents might have been hidden beneath to preserve them from invaders? The Templars' unprecedented rise from obscurity to power coincided precisely with these excavations. Within decades, they commanded the medieval world's largest army, operated a banking network spanning 3 continents, and answered only to the Pope himself. This extraordinary ascent suggests they found something of immense value: knowledge, relics, or both, beneath the ancient temple. For nearly 2 centuries, they stood as Christianity's elite warriors, bankers to kings and guardians of mysterious knowledge acquired in the East. Their distinctive white mantles emblazoned with red crosses became symbols of piety, power, and secret wisdom. Jerusalem in the 12th century stood at the crossroads of 3 civilizations: Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. While officially enemies, these cultures engaged in profound intellectual exchange. The Templars' privileged position gave them access to texts and traditions lost to European Christianity for centuries. The Islamic world had preserved and expanded upon ancient Greek philosophy, mathematics, and medicine, while Europe languished in its dark ages. Jewish mystical traditions contained alternative interpretations of biblical events. Eastern Christian sects like the Nestorians, Copts, and Byzantine Orthodox maintained doctrines and gospels rejected by Rome. Evidence suggests the Templars accumulated a vast library of such materials. Papal bulls granted them unusual exemptions from normal church oversight, allowing practices normally forbidden to Christians. They built their churches in the circular style of the Temple of Jerusalem, rather than the traditional cross shape of European cathedrals, suggesting devotion to older traditions. Surviving Templar artifacts display symbols from Kabbalah, Gnostic Christianity, and even pre-Christian mystery religions. Their infamous idol Baphomet, described in trial testimonies, bears striking resemblance to concepts in Sufi mysticism and ancient Egyptian wisdom traditions. But what specific knowledge did they acquire that proved so threatening? The answer may lie in the most closely guarded secret of all: their initiation ritual. When new members joined the order, they participated in ceremonies conducted behind locked doors, with all windows covered to prevent outside observation. Even kings were denied entry to these rites. The hidden chamber at Mons Michelle contained more than just Brother Arnaud's testimony. Concealed within a false bottom of the lead box lay fragments of parchment written in Greek, Aramaic, and an early form of Hebrew. Carbon dating placed their origin to the 1st century CE, the time of Jesus himself. These fragments align with texts discovered in 1945 at Nag Hammadi, Egypt, and the Dead Sea Scrolls, found in 1947. Together, they suggest a radically different understanding of early Christianity than the doctrine promoted by Rome. The most controversial theory, supported by these fragments and hinted at in Templar symbolism, involves the true nature of the Holy Grail. In medieval literature, the Grail first appears in 12th century romances, precisely when the Templars were at their height. These stories describe not a physical cup, but a mystical experience of direct, divine connection. Gnostic texts from Nag Hammadi reveal early Christian traditions, teaching that salvation came not through church hierarchy, but through direct personal gnosis, knowledge of the divine. Some texts suggest Jesus taught secret wisdom to an inner circle, including methods for achieving divine consciousness. Most threatening to church authority, certain texts imply Jesus survived the crucifixion, possibly traveling east with Mary Magdalene, who some sources describe not merely as a follower, but as his wife and carrier of his bloodline. This royal bloodline interpretation appears in medieval European symbols associated with Templar sites. The rose, feminine, combined with the cross, masculine, representing the sacred union. If the Templars discovered proof of these alternative narratives during their excavations, they would have possessed knowledge capable of undermining the entire power structure of medieval Europe. The Church's authority rested on its claim to be the sole intermediary between humanity and God, tracing its legitimacy through apostolic succession from Peter. Documents suggesting Jesus taught direct spiritual connection, or worse, left descendants, would have shattered this monopoly on salvation. King Philip IV of France, known as Philip the Fair, faced financial ruin by 1307. Years of warfare had emptied his treasury, and he had borrowed enormous sums from the Templars. Additionally, he had been humiliated in previous conflicts with Pope Boniface VIII, who had issued the bull Unam Sanctum, declaring papal supremacy over all earthly powers. Though Boniface died under suspicious circumstances following an attack by Philip's men, the damage to royal prestige remained. Philip needed both money and a victory over church influence. The Templars represented a solution to both problems. Their wealth could be seized, and their destruction would demonstrate royal power over religious institutions. In Pope Clement V, Philip found the perfect accomplice. Born Bertrand de Got, Clement became pope in 1305 through Philip's influence. Rather than residing in Rome, Clement established his court at Avignon within French territory, beginning the period known as the Babylonian captivity of the papacy. Under Philip's control, Clement reversed previous papal positions, even allowing the posthumous trial of Boniface VIII for heresy. When Philip moved against the Templars, Clement initially protested but quickly yielded to royal pressure. On November 22, 1307, he issued the bull Pastoralis Preeminenti, ordering all Christian monarchs to arrest Templars in their domains. The coordinated nature of the attack revealed extensive planning. Royal agents had infiltrated the order, identifying key members and locations. The arrests occurred simultaneously before dawn, preventing any warning from spreading. This operation represented medieval Europe's first large-scale secret police action. Inquisitors employed brutal torture methods. Knights had their feet coated with fat and held over flames, were subjected to bone-crushing devices, and endured sleep deprivation and starvation. Many died during these sessions, while others committed suicide to escape the pain. Yet the attack extended beyond the knights themselves. Royal officers systematically seized and destroyed Templar libraries throughout Europe. At major Templar preceptories, witnesses reported bonfires burning for days, consuming thousands of manuscripts. The thoroughness of this documentary destruction suggests eliminating certain knowledge was as important as seizing Templar wealth. The trial itself was a mockery of justice. When some Templars recanted their confessions before papal commissioners, Philip responded by burning 54 knights as relapsed heretics in a single day. This effectively silenced further defense attempts. Finally, on March 22, 1312, Clement issued the bull Vox in Excelso, officially dissolving the Templar order. Their properties were transferred to the Knights Hospitaller, though Philip retained much of their French wealth as administration fees. More importantly, their knowledge was seemingly erased from history. Despite the thoroughness of Philip's attack, evidence suggests not all Templars were captured. The papal bull ordering arrests reached England 2 months after the French raids, giving English Templars time to disappear. Similarly, Portuguese knights were largely spared when their king renamed them the Order of Christ. More intriguing is the fate of the Templar fleet. Based at La Rochelle on the Atlantic coast, this substantial navy vanished before royal forces arrived. Historical records indicate the ships sailed from various French ports in the days before the arrests, carrying unknown cargo and personnel to undisclosed destinations. Brother Arnaud's document from Mons Michelle offers tantalizing clues. Our vessels have taken the sacred wisdom beyond the reach of corrupt kings and false priests. Some sail west to lands the ancients knew, but time forgot. Others find sanctuary among the northern princes who reject Rome's dominion. The truth cannot be extinguished while those who guard it live. Templar symbolism and architectural features subsequently appeared in unexpected places. Scottish Highlands, Portuguese exploration vessels, and Swiss banking practices. The sudden emergence of Gothic cathedral building techniques, requiring advanced mathematics previously unknown in Europe, coincided with Templar dissolution. Most significantly, secretive organizations arose in the following centuries, preserving symbols and rituals with striking parallels to Templar traditions. Freemasonry, officially established in 1717 but claiming earlier origins, incorporated Templar elements including the square and compass, the concept of a lost sacred word, and reverence for the Temple of Solomon. Rosicrucian manifestos, appearing mysteriously in the early 1600s, described a secret brotherhood preserving ancient wisdom throughout Europe. Their rose-cross symbol echoed Templar iconography, and their teachings emphasized direct spiritual experience outside church hierarchy. These organizations maintained alternative narratives about Christianity's origins, Jesus' teachings, and humanity's spiritual potential, precisely the kind of knowledge the Templars might have discovered beneath the Temple Mount. While mainstream historians dismiss connections between Templars and these later groups as speculative, symbolic, and doctrinal parallels remain striking. The Vatican's secret archives, partially open to researchers in recent decades, have yielded surprising discoveries. In 2001, historian Barbara Frall found the Chinon parchment, an original record showing Clement V secretly absolved the Templar leaders of heresy in 1308, contradicting his public condemnation. Archaeological excavations at Templar sites have uncovered hidden chambers, sophisticated water systems resembling those described in ancient temple traditions, and encrypted symbols requiring knowledge of sacred geometry to interpret. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed extensive tunnel networks beneath major Templar preceptories, many still unexplored. In 2017, researchers using multispectral imaging techniques discovered previously invisible text on Templar-era documents held in European libraries. These revealed references to the vessel of living light and the marriage wisdom of the temple, alongside astronomical calculations tracking celestial alignments significant in ancient mystery traditions. Perhaps most compelling is the survival of alternative spiritual traditions throughout Europe, despite centuries of persecution. From medieval Cathars to Renaissance Hermeticists to modern esoteric movements, a consistent thread of beliefs has persisted, emphasizing direct spiritual experience, sacred masculine-feminine balance, and the divine potential within humanity. Precisely the concepts that would have threatened medieval church authority. The question remains, was this truly the secret that doomed the Templars? Did they discover evidence that early Christianity contained mystical teachings later suppressed? Did they possess documentation suggesting Jesus' bloodline continued? Or did they simply accumulate too much power, wealth, and independence for medieval authorities to tolerate? Brother Arnaud's final passage offers a cryptic conclusion. The greatest treasure we found beneath the temple was not gold or relics, but the knowledge that divinity dwells not in buildings made by human hands, nor in doctrines created by men seeking power. The true temple exists within each living soul, and no authority can stand between the seeker and what is sought. This is the light that frightens darkness, the truth that threatens falsehood, the freedom that terrifies tyrants. They may destroy our order, but this flame cannot be extinguished. Perhaps this was the ultimate heresy, not devil worship or moral corruption, but the revolutionary idea that spiritual authority resides within each person rather than institutions. This concept threatened not only medieval power structures, but challenged the fundamental premise of institutional religion itself. 7 centuries after Jacques de Molay's execution, his organization's destruction remains one of history's great turning points. Had the Templars survived, European development might have followed a different course. Their banking innovations, scientific knowledge, and spiritual perspectives could have accelerated Renaissance thinking by centuries. Instead, their demise marked the triumph of centralized authority over individual spiritual sovereignty. The secret they protected, whether alternative gospels, sacred bloodlines, or mystical practices, represents a path not taken in Western spiritual development. The final Templar secret may be this: beneath the conspiracy theories and historical mysteries lies a simpler, more profound truth. What the Church most feared was not an external threat, but the possibility that its own foundational narrative contained hidden dimensions. That Christianity's origins were more complex, more mystical, and more empowering to ordinary believers than official doctrine allowed. As we continue excavating the physical and documentary remains of Templar knowledge, we may yet discover that their greatest secret was not what they found beneath Solomon's temple, but what they recognized within the human spirit. A direct connection to divine wisdom that no institution could control, no persecution could silence, and no fire could burn away.